Welcome to Comics Week in Review, where we talk about everything happening in the comic book world this week, September 21st. My name's Steve McGauley, editor-in-chief of tmstash.com, and with me, as always, is the rest of the TM Stash crew. Mr. Marvel there, Joseph Gagel, Mr. DC, Ed Garrett, and Mr. Everything, Nicholas Duran. How we doing, buddy?
Doing well. How you doing?
Good. Doing good. A huge week in the comic book world as far as movies, television, comics, everything. Just a huge news week, starting with the Deadpool movie is real. Who thought that it was actually real after we got that leaked footage, or what? Who knows what that footage was really for? But the footage that 20th Century Fox had created, or was once created for a video game, has now led to 20th Century Fox giving us a date of February 12th, 2016 for an official Deadpool movie. So, Assassin's Creed movie gets bumped though. That's the only loss. But what do we think of actually getting a Deadpool movie?
Well, it's like I was just saying. It's something that they're going to need. Fox will, if they want to do any kind of universe building, they'll be able to make this, and he fits into the X-Men world fairly easy, especially with Wolverine. And if they want to do anything like an Uncanny X-Force movie, like I've heard about, he'd be perfect for it. And the public loves Deadpool, like you said. That video that was released got a lot of traffic and a lot of press. And I know that Ryan Reynolds and his team have really been putting the pressure on these guys. But the big thing is that they want to do it right, and they want to do it rated R. So who knows how the front office caved. It's just a good thing that they did. And I think if they got Ryan Reynolds on board still and a good script, it'll be fantastic.
Yeah, we don't have any real details as to who's directing, who's producing, who's writing. They haven't really said anything except that it sounds like they're going to do a rated R movie, and that it's probably still going to be Ryan Reynolds as the actor. But we still don't really know if it's going to be a live action movie or if it's going to be a video game like CG movie. That hasn't been made. We haven't got any information because the video footage that we saw was apparently from a video game that they were working on, that a studio is working on. So I don't know really what's going to happen there. Joe, what do you think that they're going to do a live action?
I think that's the only way to go, really, especially if they, like I said, if they want to start building a universe or even a small one. They've got to have him, in the flesh, and I really liked. I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about Ryan Reynolds, but I thought in the X-Men origin movie Wolverine, I thought he was in the parts that he had, I thought he was really good, and even the voice acting he did for that video game or whatever clip was, to me, I was like, if they turn this little thing into a whole movie, that would be great because it was perfect. I felt.
Yeah, and arguably of like superheroes, he's probably the easiest to do because he doesn't really do anything besides just off the wall banter and craziness, madness, awesome, unadulterated madness. So I'm excited. This movie's going to be great. The only thing I wish is that it wasn't in Fox's hands and it was in Disney's hands. But what are you going to do? Win some, you lose some. So 20th Century Fox is trying to do something with the very few titles that they have the rights to in the Marvel Universe. So we'll see what happens. But moving on away from movies and getting into TV, this week the CBS announced they're going to go ahead with a Supergirl TV show. What did you think about this, Ed?
I'm glad to see it, but it surprised me that it was picked up so quickly. I think probably CBS was looking at what's happening with CW, with Arrow and The Flash, looking at Fox picking up Gotham, deciding they want in. It's it's good because you've got the producers of Arrow and The Flash working on it. I think that's fantastic. The only two dangers that I can see here, and we talked about this pre-show, was that one would be when you get on a network the size of CBS, the ratings expectations will be much higher than if you were on CW or on a cable network. So I don't know if they'll give it time to reach the audience. The other will be is how much interference the network may have in the show, trying to sort of blend it down and appeal to what they think is a bigger audience. And if they did that, they could pretty much ruin it. But what they've described so far sounds like the basic Supergirl story, or at least the one that people are most familiar with, that she still is Kara Zor-El. She's been in hiding for the last few years because she came in as a teenager, but now she's 24. That's a smart move. It avoids some of the teenage girl superpower things that were really an issue in some issues of some volumes of Supergirl, the comic, and has her really becoming more public at this point. So I'm glad to see the show there. Obviously, we don't know much about it other than who's producing it, but I'm excited that it's picked up. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, there's definitely kind of a Me Too, what I call the Me Too syndrome, as CBS is like, we don't have any comic book shows. Okay, we got one, look. So, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but you're right, CBS does have a much higher standard when it comes to ratings. CW is okay with taking a 1 to 2 mil share, but CBS, being the power network that they are, isn't going to settle for mediocre ratings out of any show. So if it doesn't kill it, it's not going to have a lot of legs to stand on. Nick, what did you think of this move?
I like your Me Too theory because I think that the market is going to get oversaturated with TV shows, and we right now as the comic book nation, we have a great foothold in pop culture right now, and I don't want that to get ruined by rushing bad shows. I'm not saying necessarily I think it's going to be bad, but not all of them are going to be Arrows.
Who do you think they would cast for Kara Kent? What 24-year-old actress would be Kara Kent?
I don't know right now. I could see them going for an unknown, honestly, to get this thing started.
The game is going to be defined like some really hot 20-something blonde. Throw her in the show with a decent script and hope that it carries itself.
What I've noticed is it doesn't matter really what your hair color is to get casted in movies and TV shows these days. We had a redheaded Lois Lane.
Right. As long as they get somebody who can actually act and look believable in fight scenes, that's going to be critical. You don't want. If you want to go back to the Helen Slater Supergirl movie, did anybody all remember that? I'm showing my age here. She had the look for Supergirl. She certainly has done a good acting job in other movies, but that was not what you would call one of the movies of all time. And so I hope it'll be better than that. We'll see. CBS actually has a history of some superhero TV shows from way back when, but the ones that they had were sort of cheesy. So we'll see how this one turns out. I'm really hoping it'll be good. I really am. I'll keep my fingers crossed and hope for the best.
I do have a question for you, Ed, about the show. Knowing what you know about Superwoman, do you feel like, with a well-written script and all that, do you think they have enough stuff to work with within the Superwoman realm to really carry this show going forward for a while with good script? Do you think they have access to enough of the material?
Yeah, I think there is. You got to understand, there's been like several different versions of Supergirl over the years. You had the original Kara Zor-El that came in I want to say like the 1950s. They killed her off in Crisis on Infinite Earths. They replaced her with this synthetic being after Crisis on Infinite Earths that could shift shapes and came from some weird pocket universe, and they had her around for a while. Then they gave her some sort of angelic origin, and then they finally went ahead and brought Kara Zor-El back not long before the New 52. The newer version here couldn't speak any Earth language for a while. Finally started picking up some other stuff. So, if you want to go with the Linda Danvers Supergirl version that was pre-Crisis, that probably would be a little bit cheesy. I think the synthetic version nobody would understand. Not that they would want to. And I'm not sure that goes totally New 52 either. But yeah, there's enough angst in there, and the need for secrecy, and trying to find a place in the world from a different perspective than Clark Kent, who grew up in Smallville, because this would be someone who came to Earth as a teenager. Yeah, you could dig into that and have some good stories. It's just going to be, are they going to take the time to write the good stories, and will they choose somebody who can act well? And that's going to be if the Arrow team certainly has the chops to do it if they're not interfered with enough. I was kidding before show about that they might want to make this. Let's make it like Friends, and we'll have her live with a bunch of people, and we'll have her go out with a really douchey guy. And I hope they don't do that, and I hope they leave Streaky the Super Cat out of it for right now. That was the pet from the Silver Age. But there's a lot they could throw in. If they wanted to go pre-Crisis, they could even throw in some of the Legion of Superheroes, sort of like they did with the Superman with Smallville series. So it depends. It depends. We'll cross our fingers.
It'll be interesting. Hopefully we get to see it. I mean, there are penalties attached to the deal, but which increases the chance of it actually making it to the airwaves, but there's no guarantee that we're actually going to get to see this. So they just have the rights to it now, and we'll see what happens. It's a similar situation to what Gotham had. There was no commitment for Gotham, just a penalty if they didn't decide to move forward with the project. So, and with that being said, Gotham starts tomorrow, so we actually finally get to see a major network do comic books. I mean, the CW's been doing it for quite some time, been doing amazing things with it, and Fox is, has an interesting twist on how they want to do Gotham, giving us a different side of the Gotham story. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes to fruition tomorrow night when we get to see the pilot. So I'm excited to watch that, and I'm sure John and I will be talking about that later this week in our movie and TV podcast. So we'll be following up with that.
I think S.H.I.E.L.D. starts this week also.
What does?
I think S.H.I.E.L.D. starts this week now that I think about it too.
Yeah, there's a lot of new TV starting this week. This is the first, probably the first big week of things starting. So here through the middle of October, we should start seeing all the new shows start rolling out. So with towards the middle to end of October, we get The Walking Dead. So that's one of the last shows, I think, to start for the new season. So fun stuff with the TV show starting. But what do we have this week in comic books? We had a lot, I know that. But Joe, why don't you tell us what happened in Marvel this week?
Well, I've got a few things. First, I'm going to start off with the March to Axis and Uncanny Avengers. It was, like always, it was a really good issue. We kind of see a Two-Face undertone happening at the end of the last run. Havoc has kind of half of his face melted off, and he's getting. They're showing you getting him mixed reactions in public. He's even in his interior monologue starting to question things. And it's been rumored that during Axis he might have a personality inversion. So I'm wondering if they're going to pull a Two-Face. But that aside, him and a couple other members of the Unity Squad are taken by the S-Men and taken back to Genosha, where they meet and free Magneto, who will not leave because he is going to stay there and finish, I believe, try to stop the Red Skull, even if it cost him his life. because of this genocide that's going on. And I think that's going to be building to a really good story. I guess it really kind of kicks off next month. But on the Spider-Man side, we've got a lot happening in the Spider-Verse. The Edge of Spider-Verse #2 continued with a really good one-shot story of a world where Gwen Stacy is Spider-Man, and things kind of happen a little bit differently in her world. She's responsible for the death of Peter Parker, who went on to become the Lizard. And so this is a really good twist, a really well-written tale, and it will continue on in next month into Amazing Spider-Man. But if it was an ongoing series, I'd definitely get it.
Did you get to read that, Nick?
I did. I agree with Joe. I think that I really think that Marvel's testing the waters on that one, because Gwen Stacy's a character that we only get to read that one story, that she was Peter's love, and then we lost her and she's gone. So everyone loves to see a new take on character that they rarely get to read about, and I would. It was really cool. And the costume was awesome.
Yes, the costume was very cool. So I think a lot of it went into it, and I think you're right. They might be testing the waters, and as the story continues, I really hope she survives, because I don't think very many Spider-Men are going to make it out of this one. But to move along with that, in the Superior Spider-Man issue #33 was kind of a two different stories. One is we get to see him and his little army of Spider-Man take on this character who we learn is Karn, which is part of the second story, which gives everyone a really good backstory of these the family of these slayers that are going through time and killing all the Spider-Man. We get a good story as to where they come from, why they're doing what they're doing, and why this guy in particular, who is kind of an outcast of the family, is really taking it to the Spider-Mans in the different worlds. So it's going to be really good to see how all this comes into the main story next month. And finally, speaking of Deadpool, Nick, I know you've read it, the Deadpool biannual, which has an outrageous story about this group of animal rogues called Brute Force, who kind of have a robotic suits, and kind of they've been doing damage in these local water parks. And Deadpool's kind of hired to stop them, but they come to find out the people who hired him are really the bad guys, and they have to go Voltron style against a giant killer whale mech machine. It's just great. Of course, it's Deadpool, so it's always fun.
They even made a joke in there about how they were created, kind of rip at Hasbro, how they were created to sell toys, and that didn't work out very well. Deadpool is top class humor.
If anything, they're really good at throwing in those offbeat 90s references that only people like us would get. Really.
Written by us for us.
And I think that's all I got this week. Ed?
He had Batman Eternal with a big battle between Spoiler and Clue Master, which was really awesome. Took up nearly the entire issue. Of course, you hear me every week talking about how much I love Batman Eternal. Multiversity had the Society of Superheroes, which was on Earth 20, and it's sort of not really steampunk, not really 40s, but somewhere in between version of some of the Golden Age heroes. They had the Alfred Atom, a female Blackhawks team that was really cool, a Doc Fate that was nice, and sort of a devilish-looking Aben Sur Green Lantern who was wearing one of Alan Scott's old uniforms with Anthro fighting their Vandal Savage and looking for help. This is going to be an interesting series. It really is. But that's sort of the precursor to all the Futures In stuff, and man, was there a lot of Futures In stuff. Red Robin's outed by Lois Lane as still being alive, although most of the Teen Titans have been killed. There was a reference to Wonder Girl's brains being splattered all over him. You go 35 years in the future, and Brother Eyes captured Bruce Wayne, and finding out that there's a plot to go back in time. And then you get to all of the other ones. I talked a lot about it on the DC Corner, but a couple of things I'd want to hit here, and Nick, you may want to talk some more stuff on here too, but they did purposely close the door to being able to fix this with Pandora. They had they had sort of, Pandora sort of who created the New 52. It certainly would have the power to alter reality. So a lot of folks were wondering, are we going to get her to reinstate the pre-New 52 universe? Will she reset the New 52? The issue that came out this week really closed the book on her doing anything. She's not going to do anything about this. So now you got to figure out, are they going to continue with it being this grim and dark? Because boy, have they set up some grim futures for some of the characters here. Even this week they did.
Yeah, there's.
Or are we going to have some trapdoor out? Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
I don't know. I agree with you, Ed, when you said that you don't know how they could go forward with this as the future. And there was some grim stuff with Supergirl being disfigured. There was some stuff with.
Yeah.
It's just they're mixing everything up. It's like they do a total, almost like another reboot on the universe if they do this.
Stuff with Batgirl.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, Batgirl having been Bane, Batwoman becoming a vampire. I mean, it's just not good. Now, 50 Sue, which what a name for a character.
I love her.
Yeah, she's a great character. I mean, but the name being 50 Sue, knowing how many people didn't like the 52, they might as well have named her Up Yours. But she's a great character. But right now she sees herself as a sidekick.
In a dysfunctional family.
Yes, but now if she ever sees herself as a lead character, she could be the trapdoor that gets us out of this. But in some respects, it reminds me of the Flashpoint series, which was not originally intended to launch the New 52. The original intent was to come back to the regular DC universe, but it was presenting an alternate universe and an alternate future, everything going really badly, and then a way to bring it back. And if that's the intent for Future's End, okay, cool. But if they really intended for this to be the 5 years from now, that would be a sad thing, because they pretty much crapped on a whole bunch of characters to get to the Future's End. So we'll see. Now, on the indie side, there were some really good books that came out this week, and a couple of them I didn't expect to go as nuts over them as I did. Jim Henson's The Storyteller, Witches #1 from Archaea, which is now owned by Boom, was one of the most beautiful books I've seen in ages. There's no thought balloons or word balloons. All the wording is worked into the artwork, but it is just a beautifully illustrated story, something you would expect from a Jim Henson workshop. And then another one that surprised me was Oddly Normal from Image, which it's a half girl, half human, half witch girl who is coming up for her birthday. She's really not popular at all. Boy, is she not popular. And they even work in a little Wizard of Oz mythology in there, in that since she's half witch, the rain only hurts her a lot. But she wishes that her parents would disappear, and guess what? They do.
Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah, this looks neat. Nick, you saw this one as well. I love the illustration. It's one guy, Otis Frampton, that's written it and illustrated it. It just looks neat.
What I like about it is, especially, and so growing up, kids go through all sorts of issues, especially not fitting in. And it just was such a great story about this kid who was having trouble fitting in and dealing with what makes her different. And I didn't expect it. I thought it was going to be like this cheesy, cutesy cartoon, and it had a great story, and it was funny.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and great art.
We'll highly recommend, and it's an all ages kind of book. That's something to say. It's accessible to any age. You wouldn't be afraid to show this to your little brother or sister or a cousin or a niece or nephew, or if you are a parent, your own kids. It was a good book.
I didn't get to read this, unfortunately, and I might have to now.
I enjoyed it.
It sounds awesome.
Really
Anything
good.
else, Ed, that you read this week?
That's the big ones. I mean, we read a whole bunch of. I looked at Solar Man of the Atom, which is one of the Gold Key characters that's been relaunched over at Dynamite. It almost needs to be renamed because the main hero now is Solar's daughter, but you have the original Solar sort of acting as a ghost dad, sort of mentoring her. But that book is really good. But yeah, this was a good week. I can tell you coming up this coming week though. DC's still got Future's End. They're going to finally tell what happened with the war with Earth 2, and they're confirming that it's a war between the two worlds. Superman Future's End hits. Booster Gold Future's End. We've not seen Booster in a while. He sort of briefly appeared with Jonah Hex, but he disappeared from reality when Superman and Wonder Woman got together, only briefly appearing in Jonah Hex. So we get to see him and what happened to him, and a lot of the guys have been kept out of play. And then you've got Flash Future's End with the final fight between Barry and his future self. And then they sort of start scraping down toward the bottom of the barrel on what they could do for tie-ins, although some of them will probably be good. Aquaman and the Others, Catwoman, where she's revealed as the Black Mask. That ought to be pretty cool. Harley Quinn finally gets married to Mr. J. But they actually go down to Star Spangled War Stories G.I. Zombie Future's End, which is about one step above going back to an old DC book and saying Jerry Lewis Future's End. Batman Eternal 25 comes out. Superman Doomed with the big battle with Brainiac coming out, and that's sort of the big stuff from DC. Dark Horse has Captain Midnight number 15 coming out, and if you've not caught their superhero lineup, it's really good. And Captain Midnight is actually an old pulp hero from the 40s, literally published back then, that they've revived and done real well with. A Ghost is coming out. Sundowners, Pop, Tomb Raider, and a Witcher trade paperback. IDW has Samurai Jack and Star Trek City on the Edge of Forever. Image has Chew and Cowl coming out. I love Chew. Saga 23 comes out. Titan has Alien Legion Uncivil War coming out. Boom has a new book called Butterfly. They have Evil Empire and Lumberjanes and Clive Barker's Nightbreed. Dynamite has Red Sonja number 12 and Bob's Burgers number 2 coming out. And then over at Valiant, they're finally coming to a conclusion on Armor Hunters, which has been their big event. It's been wonderful. The final battle is Armor Hunters number 4. You'll see some aftermath of that in Exo Manowar number 29. And Harbinger Omega's number 2 also comes out from Valiant. So that's sort of the highlight of what's coming out this week from DC and from the Indies.
Awesome. Joe, what did you have coming up this week?
I got a big week for Marvel as well. The March to Axis continues in Magneto number 10 and Loki Agent of Asgard number 10. The Edge of Spider-Verse continues, and this week the story will be about Aaron Ackerman, the Spider-Man. Also, the finale for Learning to Crawl and Amazing Spider-Man 1.5, which has been a pretty good story. Steven, we're going to get some closure in Guardians of the Galaxy, the final tie-in for Original Sin. We're pushing it out the door. Cyclops number 5. Amazing X-Men number 11. No Death of Wolverine this week. I don't think we get another Death of Wolverine till October 1st. But in the meantime, I think there's a new Savage Wolverine. Thunderbolts number 31. We finally get to see the Punisher go up against the Red Hulk as the series crawls down to a conclusion. All new Ghost Rider, new Avengers, new Inhuman, and just like we talked about in the beginning, I'll close it off with a new Deadpool issue.
Cool.
It's a Deadpool thing.
Nice. Nick, what did you... I know you had a book that you were particularly fond of this week.
Oh, yeah.
I've not passed that too quick. Go ahead. Sorry.
That's all right. Just a Doberman by IDW and Darby Pop. It's by the writers of It's by the writers of Always Sunny in Philadelphia. That team is. And I am not finding it. Oh, I'm sorry. Scott Marder, Rob Rossell, and Jack Lambert, and it is funny. It is based on so the basic is it's a character
is Danny
from
DeVito in the comic?
I wish. He is not in the comic, but it's based on a 80s cop, basically like think Cash from Tango and Cash, and his partner gets killed and he disappears into the woods, and they bring him, and you jump forward like 20 or 30 years, and he finds out that the murderer of his partner is still there, so he comes back into this world, and he's still living his 80s lifestyle. There's a great interrogation scene with a phone book where he does everything you could possibly do to someone with a phone book, including rip it in half and stab the hot ends against his face and screams hot coffee. And then there's a 2-page splash of a video montage with no music, like an 80s montage, shows him working out and doing pull-ups while the bad guy's golfing. And I had all your classic 80s movies, Eye of the Tiger, You Are the Best, going through my head while I was watching this. So I think these guys came into this series not knowing a lot about comics, and I think they're crushing it. They're making me laugh. The art's great, and that's all I need.
Yeah, I can imagine them doing something good, having no holds barred and not being able to do whatever they want. As creative and crazy as they were doing It's Always Sunny.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, having a blank slate for them, we can imagine being just crazy. So that's going to be a fun one to watch.
You guys know Sunny doesn't start until January?
What was that, Joe? You're cutting out.
I said, do y'all know that the Sunny didn't start till January?
No. Sad.
Yeah.
And you're just gonna have to go out and buy Doberman every month.
I guess so.
Right. Would that be your pick of the week, Nick?
Yeah, you know that, and I know Ed already did the DC Future End, but I really enjoyed Wonder Woman. I felt like that was the only Future End that actually had a lot of depth, and it makes sense because the same guy who's created this Future End storyline writes Wonder Woman, so he has a connection to both. I'm going to butcher his name, Brian Azzarello.
If you had to pick the one, would that be the one book you would read? Would have read this week? If you had to pick one book.
Man, that's tough. Yeah, I'll give it to Doberman because I read all the other stuff. The other stuff I read all the time. I'll give it to Doberman.
Joe, if you had to pick one book this week, what would it be? Would it be the Spider?
It's tough. It's between that and Uncanny Avengers, but I'm going to go with Uncanny Avengers because I've read it since issue number 1, and it's been one of my top 5 series that's well written. And Spider-Woman is a very close second because there's a possibility of that turning into something else. So I'm going to go with Uncanny Avengers.
Ed, I know you read like 100 books this week, but pick one for the audience just to have to read this week.
Oh my gosh! Well, from last week, Multiversity was definitely it. Although Oddly Normal and Cave had a pretty good run, and of course I'm a big fan of Batman Eternal. Coming up this week, I probably would pay a lot of attention to Batman Eternal, but yeah, I'm a big fan of what's happening with Multiversity. So whenever they're coming up, that's something I want to check out.
I don't know if I like this new question, Steven. It's too loaded.
Hey, that's what makes it interesting. I'm just going to cop out and say Deadpool biannual because it only comes out twice a year.
Actually,
Deadpool's just awesome, and we know he's getting a movie, which is going to make it even better.
So what books would you say to pass on, though?
Ooh.
Is that dangerous waters?
Well, I could. Let's not piss off everyone that gives us awesome access to their books. So let's just pick on.
I'll
DC
throw one out there.
for that matter. They don't give us books.
I'll say the Thor and Loki, the 10th Realm is a pass because I really
I didn't read
expected
that,
to
but
learn
it
a whole
sounded
lot
pretty
about
shitty.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. It wasn't a bad story. Everyone got what they wanted, I guess. But I was really expecting, with them, the way they sprinkled in the Thor not being able to pick his hammer up in the original main story, I really thought there would be something in this one, and there's not. And like I mentioned pre-show, there was an Avengers title that had the new, Thor's new look and everything, and they didn't even really talk about that either. So obviously they're trying to dangle this like a carrot in front of us for as long as we will.
Yeah, my picks not to read are the Marvel filler books that we get, every month. There's always some story always has just awful filler books, like last month's Guardians, this month's Loki, just stupid.
Yeah.
I would follow Joe with Marvel and say X-Men and the Wolverine.
Yeah.
Wolverine and the X-Men. I mean, I'm ready to quit that series. It needs to go away with Wolverine.
Ed, is there anything from DC that you would just put on the not read list for this week?
I would say it's something that you don't have to read. Teen Titans Futures End basically dumped the entire Teen Titans team out, substituted another Teen Titans team in that you'll never see again. And threw in the Heretic, which is one of those weird clones of Damien for good measure. It wasn't that horrible a book, but it's certainly a book that you could completely skip and not really miss a doggone thing about Future's End.
It was fluff.
Yeah, it was. It was.
So you have it, the picks and possible skips of the week.
The pick knots.
The pans.
The picks and pick knots. That's what we're gonna call this segment from now on. The picks and pick knots. So, and we covered everything that's coming out this week. Lots of fun stuff. Go grab Guardians. But that pretty much wraps it up for everything this week. Don't forget to watch Gotham and the rest of the TV shows that start this week. For all the latest news and all the latest reviews, always check out all the latest on tmstash.com from all of us. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, guys. And for all of you, have a wonderful evening. Keep reading the stash.